3 exclamation points, very important, and you talked about it a little bit already, being more controlled from the floor, and that's what I'm getting at, you know. So slow down means a number of things to me, actually, and one thing that it means to me is just take your time when you're getting into your positions. You know, don't rush in and out of your start position. If you're doing a hip snatch, don't rush down and back out of it. Take your time and get into it. Hold it briefly and then go. Same thing with creating the transition point. And the reason why is the slower you go, the more likely you are to create the positions that we want. You know, and you're actually going to give yourself, you're going to speed up the learning process, you know, because you're going to go down slowly, get in that position, and you're going to hold it briefly. Every time you do it, you're going to get a little extra strength work out of it too, because you're going to get that brief hold. Does that make sense? So it's very, very important to slow down when you're setting yourself up. The biggest thing that slow down means is really the rhythm of the whole lift. You know, everybody wants to rip it from the floor. You know, go as fast as they can from the floor. And it's easy to do that, especially the more weight you put on the bar. You're like, man, I gotta go. I gotta rip this thing from the floor. And in actuality, like you said, we need to set ourselves up first. Okay, so think about this. The slower you go, the more likely you are to maintain tension, position, bar closeness, and overall quality. Same is true on the other end. The faster you go, if you go as fast as you possibly can from the floor, the more likely you are to lose any and all of those. Okay? So we've got to take our time and create the best transition point that we can, and then we can go crazy. When we go crazy from here to here on extension, I want it to be wild, but the way that it is controlled and the way that we get the most out of that wild extension is that everything else up to that point is correct. Does that make sense? So while you guys are learning, and I'm going to look at you guys move from the floor here pretty quick, you can't go too slow from the floor up to your transition point. And so that's specifically what it means. Any movement from a start position to a transition point, from the floor to above the knee, or from this standing position in the jerk down to the point to where I change direction, we're going to go really slow. We'll be able to speed that up eventually, but it's never going to be as fast as you can go, and it's always going to be a little bit more controlled than what your power exertion is. Does that make sense? Right? So there's that. Four explanation points on that one, so it's really important to simplify your focus. We've talked about a million different things, right? There's at least 20 different things that you could be thinking of when you're trying to accomplish a snatch, all the way from the floor to receiving and everything else, right? So we always have to simplify that down as much as we possibly can, and the number that I want you to get good at is 3. Thinking 3 things. And the reason why I say I want you to get good at, because a lot of times that's a skill in itself. You have to develop the ability to do that. And one thing that you have to do when you do that is that if I tell you, if I give you 3 cues, they can't just be in your head and scrambled. They have to be in order, right? They have to be in order, and that means that your awareness has to be with the bar, right? So think about this. If we're gonna pick the 3 most important things out for you to accomplish a movement, and sometimes we can think less than that. If it's a partial movement, say if it's a hip snatch, it's all the biggest thing that we're focusing on is extending, just exaggerating our extension, and then maybe one other one that goes along with a weakness that you have or something that we're trying to correct. But they have to be in order, and when we pick out those things, it really becomes pretty easy if you think in terms of what are the most common faults in a snatch, for example. What are they? What's the first thing that usually goes wrong?
I don't know what you're...
From the floor. I mean, in your start position, and usually the first thing that goes wrong is that people lose tension in their back, especially with heavy weights. They don't even hold tight. I'll tell you right now that as long as I've been doing this, holding my back tight from the floor is something that I have to make myself do on every rep. It's never going to cease. You're always going to have to do that, right? So 1, tight. And that cue or that trigger may simply be tight. But there's a million different words that we can use, and there's a million different concepts that I may have you think to make you accomplish being tight from the floor. Okay? What's the second thing that goes wrong? What's the most important position of the whole lift?
Knees.
The transition point. Yeah, knees. So we have to exaggerate that in some way. Now, there's a little bit of danger there because, when I first started coaching, I still put a lot of emphasis on vertical shin position, but I was saying vertical shins over and over and over again. And so the easiest way to create vertical shins, if this is my back angle from the floor, is to do that, right? Because that shoots the knees back. And so you see that in people's movements. I can see when somebody is focused too much on creating a vertical shin position because they do that and their knees just go back, right?
Well, based on your video, you have your knees flared.
Knees flared, yes, knees flared, but back at the same time. So that knee flaring, we want that knee flaring because that keeps our, from the floor, that opens up our start position and makes it easier. It keeps our body activated the best way that it possibly can. But we still want to get back. Yeah, the knees are flared and back at the same time, and that knee flaring makes that a little bit easier. Okay, there's less flare on the clean, right? And you can see that in those cleans. There's less flare, so there's more back. But it's easier to create that position. Okay, but we have to exaggerate our transition point in some way. What's the third thing? What's your biggest fault? No extension. No extension, right? So again, as long as I've been doing this, extension is something that I will forever have to make myself do. These two right here, you have to make yourself do it. You have to make yourself do it.